On the day of the wedding, I cursed Yu Chengfeng's entire ancestry in my head. He held his white moonlight's hand right in front of me, and even as my mother was rushed to the hospital with a heart attack from pure rage, he, with that mind-reading ability of his, heard every word and simply gave a cold smirk. What he didn't know was that I didn't marry him for money, I came for his life. Even less did he know that I have less than a year to live. When he begged me to sign papers at the board meeting, I told him in my heart, Yu Chengfeng, once I'm dead, you won't even find a headstone to cry at. The wedding at the Yu family estate was covered in white roses, and the champagne towers shimmered under the lights as the whispers of 300 guests surged toward me like a tide. I stood by the guest book in my custom wedding dress, clutching a bouquet of calla lilies. The makeup artist had given me a flawless look, but everyone's gaze felt like they were looking at a piece of furniture. Oh, the Yu heir married a mute. How pathetic. Yu Chengfeng's mother, Zhao Lanji, strutted over in 10-centimeter heels. She tapped my shoulder with a finger, her voice loud enough for the whole hall to hear. Shen Qingwan, let me tell you, marrying into the Yu family is a blessing from your past 8 lives. But remember, you're a mute. Don't go out and embarrass us. My son needs a wife who can help him network, not a useless thing who can only make gestures. I lowered my head and smiled, typed a line on the tablet I always carried and held it up for her. You're right, Mom, I'll keep that in mind. Zhao Lanji snorted and walked away. In my head I spat, you old hag, if your son's capital chain hadn't snapped, would you have ever let him marry me? You think I don't know the Yu family is just an empty shell now? That emerald necklace you're wearing is a fake, the clasp is practically falling off, yet you're still here playing the wealthy socialite. Yu Chengfeng stood near the main stage in a meticulously tied black suit. He was undeniably handsome, with deep features and a sharp jawline. He looked like a romantic lead when he smiled, but he wasn't smiling now. He was leaning down, talking to a woman. When Ruotang, she was in a pale pink gown, her long hair draped over her shoulders, her eyes rimmed with red as if she'd suffered some great injustice. She tugged at Chengfeng's sleeve, her voice low, but standing just 3 meters away, I heard every word. Chengfeng, I really shouldn't have come, I just wanted to see you happy with my own eyes. I shouldn't disrupt your wedding, I'm leaving now. Yu Chengfeng took her hand, his voice so tender it could melt. Ruotang, don't go, you are the most important person to me. I can only feel at peace today because you're here. Are you kidding me? I cursed internally. When Ruotang, give it a rest. You spent last night in Chengfeng's apartment. You think I don't know? Even your concealer couldn't hide that hickey on your neck, so why are you acting out this tragedy? And you Chengfeng, holding your white moonlight's hand on your own wedding day. Do you think I'm dead? But I kept a poised smile on my face and walked over slowly. Seeing me, Yu Chengfeng didn't let go of when Ruotang. Instead, he gripped her hand tighter. He looked at me, his tone like he was notifying a subordinate. Qingwan, this is Ruotang, a very good friend of mine. She came to offer us her blessings today. When Ruotang immediately squeezed out 2 tears and reached for my hand. Sister Qingwan, I'm sorry I shouldn't have come, but I truly wish you both the best. Chengfeng is a good man. You will definitely be happy. She was trembling like a frightened little bunny. I patted the back of her hand and typed on my tablet. Thank you, Ruotang. Your dress is very beautiful today. When Ruotang blinked, clearly not expecting me to be so magnanimous, Yu Chengfeng glanced at me, a flash of surprise in his eyes that was quickly replaced by satisfaction. He had married a compliant woman after all. I turned toward the head table, sneering internally. Beautiful, it's as beautiful as a funeral shroud in a mortuary display. The ceremony began. As the officiant read the vows, I typed I do on the tablet and held it up. Zhao Lanji rolled her eyes from the front row, and guests whispered amongst themselves. Someone muttered, how bad luck to marry a mute. Yu Chengfeng took the microphone, his voice deep and magnetic. I am marrying Qingwan because she is kind, quiet, and can give me a warm home. Translation, she can't speak. She won't cause trouble, and she makes it easy for me to keep a woman on the side. I applauded him in my heart. Bravo, President Yu, it's a tragedy you aren't at the Oscars. When we exchanged rings, Yu Chengfeng's hand brushed my fingertips, and his expression suddenly shifted, as if he were listening to something, his brow furrowing slightly. He heard me cursing him in my head. I knew he could read minds. It was a secret I had uncovered before the wedding. A rare few men in the Yu family inherited this ability, and Yu Chengfeng was one of them. He thought he was the only one in the world who knew, But he had no idea I'd spent 3 months investigating everything about him, including this damn mind reading. So he heard me swearing at him, but he wouldn't call me out. He'd only think, "This mute seems submissive on the outside, but she's got quite a temper in her head." He glanced at me, the corners of his mouth curling slightly as if looking at a kitten with its fur standing up. I put the ring on him and lowered my head, feigning shyness. My mind kept going. "What are you smiling at? Have you scraped together the 300 million in debt due next month for the U Group? Have you cleaned up the mess your father left behind? Why are you acting like some big-shot CEO?" Yu Chengfeng's smile stiffened for a second. He slid the ring onto my finger, leaning in to whisper in my ear, "Shen Qingwan, you'd better behave." I looked up at him, blinking innocently. In my head I said, "Behave your ass." Once the banquet started, I sat at the head table like a fine porcelain vase. Yu Chengfeng took Wen Ruotang around for toasts, and everyone looked at me with pity. My phone vibrated. The screen lit up with a notification from my Silent Muse account. A 300 million yuan payment had just cleared. It was the advance from the GU Group buying out the 3-year exclusive agency rights for my Abyss series. I locked the screen and tucked the phone into my clutch. Yu Chengfeng walked back to the table, his cheeks flushed and smelling of alcohol. He sat down, looked at me and suddenly said, "You did well today." I smiled and poured him a cup of tea. He drank it and lowered his voice. "But I heard you calling my mother an old hag in your head." My fingers paused. He really did hear it. I looked up at him, my eyes welling up with a perfectly timed layer of mist. My lips trembled as I typed on the tablet. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm just a little sad." As Yu Chengfeng watched my aggrieved expression, his mind reading went to work. Again, he heard my heart say, "Dumbass, you took the bait." His brow furrowed, but he said nothing. Just then, Zhao Lanji walked over, grabbing Chengfeng. "Miss Wen has had too much to drink, go see her off." Yu Chengfeng stood up and looked at me. I nodded submissively and typed, "Go ahead, don't leave Ruotang alone." He turned and left, watching his back. I thought, "Go right ahead, Yu Chengfeng. For every night you spend with her, I'll take a year off the life of the U Group." In the bridal suite, I sat alone on the edge of the bed, the train of my wedding dress sprawling across the mattress. I opened the safe and pulled out a medical report. Patient Shen Qingwan, female, 26, diagnosis brainstem glioma, advanced stage. The tumor is compressing the speech center and auditory nerves, leading to loss of voice and progressive hearing loss. Estimated survival 8 to 12 months. Immediate surgery recommended, though success rate is below 20%. I put the report back and locked the safe. My phone vibrated again. It was a text from Jiu Hongzhou, CEO of the GU Group. A pleasure doing business. When do we start closing the net on the U Group project? I replied with one word, now. I turned off the lights and lay on the marriage bed. The moonlight filtered in through the window, cold and lonely. Yu Chengfeng did not return all night. Closing my eyes, I thought, "Yu Chengfeng, I'm going to die. You'll finally be free, but you won't be. I'm going to make you destroy everything you own with your own hands. On the very day you realize you've fallen for me, this is what you owe me." On the 68th floor of the U Group building, news of the CEO's wife making her first appearance as a charity ambassador at a gala had been leaked a week early by Zhao Lanji. Her exact words were, "Let everyone see that mute daughter-in-law the Yu's married. We can't have her making a fool of herself on stage later." I wore a black backless gown with my own Thorns series necklace, silver thorns wrapped around the throat, symbolizing a strangled voice. In the fashion world, this necklace was worth 20 million, but here no one recognized it. Yu Chengfeng stood beside me, dressed in a sharp suit, expressionless. He lowered his voice. "Tonight all you need to do is smile. Don't use sign language, no one understands it. Ruotang will translate for you." I looked up, eyes crinkling into a smile, and nodded. My mind said, when Ruotang translating for me, is she translating, or is she handing me the noose? The banquet was held in the grand hall, where crystal chandeliers made everyone look like they were gilded in gold. I took Chengfeng's arm as we walked in, every eye turned toward us, or rather toward him, before scanning over me like I was part of the background. Zhao Lanji stood in the center of the crowd with a glass of champagne. Seeing me, she gave a fake smile. "Qingwan is here, come, let me introduce you to some of the ladies." I walked over, she took my hand, her nails digging into my palm, her voice sickly sweet. "These are Mrs. Zhong, Mrs. Li, and Mrs. Wang." Our Qingwan might not be able to talk, but she's so well behaved. Mrs. Zhong looked me up and down, her eyes appraising me like a price tag. Such a shame, she's quite pretty. Mrs. Lee leaned in. I heard you studied jewelry design, are you still doing that? I was about to type, but Zhao beat me to it. What design? Once you marry into the Yu family, you belong to the family, just focus on being a good wife and mother. Besides, who would hire a mute to design anything? I typed a line on the tablet and held it up with a smile. Mom is right, I'm mainly learning how to be a good wife at home right now. Zhao nodded, satisfied. I cursed in my head. You old bat, that emerald necklace on your neck is a knockoff, it's my design from 3 years ago. You spent 500,000 on a grader fake just to show off. Do you even know the original is worth 23 million? Your son couldn't even afford it. Zhao expression suddenly shifted. She couldn't hear my thoughts, of course, but she saw Yu Chengfeng standing not far away, staring at me with a peculiar look on his face. Once the gala officially began, the host invited the president's wife on stage to give a speech. I stood on the stage, the spotlight hitting me. As 300 pairs of eyes stared from below, the host handed me the microphone. Then, as if remembering something, laughed awkwardly. Apologies, I forgot. Mrs. Yu finds it inconvenient to speak, then let us invite. When Ruotang walked up from below in a flowing white dress, holding a small whiteboard, she stood beside me and spoke into the mic. Hello everyone, I am Changfeng's good friend Wen Ruotang. Since Sister Qingwan cannot speak, I will help translate her sign language. Sister Qingwan, what would you like to say? Just gesture to me. She looked at me, her gaze as gentle as a spring breeze. I sneered internally. You know perfectly well I don't know sign language. Why are you acting like a saint? It's true, I didn't know sign language. I lost my voice because the tumor was pressing on my nerves. I wasn't born deaf or mute. I can hear, I just can't speak. I had never learned sign language. All those gestures I made in front of the Yus were things I'd made up on the spot. But when Ruotang didn't know that, she thought I was truly mute, she thought I didn't know sign language, and she thought I would humiliate myself on stage. She was waiting for the joke. I stood there without making a single gesture. When Ruotang waited 3 seconds, then said thoughtfully, Sister Qingwan might be too nervous, I'll speak for her then. She practiced this with me before. She said she is grateful for everyone's presence, and while she feels she isn't worthy of Chengfeng, she will work hard to be a good wife and not embarrass anyone. The room went silent for a second, followed by a scattering of sparse applause. Someone whispered, how pathetic, can't even speak for herself, has to rely on others. Miss Wen is so kind, translating for her rival. Why didn't Yu Chengfeng go up? Is he letting his wife be humiliated? I stood on the stage, my smile unchanging. In my heart I said, Wen Ruotang, what a wonderful translation, but that's not what I have to say. I held up my tablet. On it were the words I had just typed. Thank you all for coming. I am Shen Qingwan, wife of Yu Chengfeng. Although I cannot speak, my designs can. Next week, my first jewelry collection will be exhibited in Paris, and I welcome you all to follow it. Please enjoy the evening. I turned the tablet around for everyone to see. When Ruotang's face went pale instantly, she never expected me to write it out. Someone in the crowd gasped, she's a jewelry designer, exhibiting in Paris. Which collection? Mrs. Yu has been hiding her light under a bushel. I smiled and walked off the stage. As I passed Wen Ruotang, I moved my lips near her ear, making no sound, but forming the words clearly. She understood them. I said, dumbass. When Ruotang's face turned bright red, but she didn't dare lash out because Yu Chengfeng was walking over. Yu Chengfeng stood before me, his brow furrowed. Since when did you have a jewelry collection to exhibit? I typed, always. He stared at me for 3 seconds as his mind-reading ability kicked in. He heard me saying in my head, did you know that the design director of your Yu group has been taking kickbacks for 3 years? Did you know when Ruotang took a 2 million yuan rebate from a brand partner? You know nothing. You only know how to go shopping with your white moonlight first love. Yu Chengfeng's expression froze at that moment when Ruotang walked over and grabbed Yu Chengfeng's arm, her voice carrying a sob. Chengfeng, I'm sorry, did I translate it wrong? Is Sister Qingwan angry? I didn't mean to. Yu Chengfeng patted her hand. It's not your fault. He looked at me, his tone turning cold. Shen Qingwan, what are you saying in your heart? I blinked innocently and typed on the tablet. I'm saying that the steak tonight is delicious. Yu Chengfeng took a deep breath, turned around and led Wen Ruotang away. Watching their retreating figures, I pulled out my phone and sent a message. The recipient was the chairman of Ruehua Group, the Yu Group's largest partner. The content was a single line. I've emailed you the evidence of you group's design director taking kickbacks. My condition, replace when Ruotang. 10 minutes later Yu Chengfeng's phone rang. He answered it, his face turning from red to white, then from white to a sickly green. What, withdrawing investment, why? The voice on the other end was so loud I could hear it from 3 meters away. President Yu, your design director, has been pocketing my kickbacks for 3 years, 20 million in total. Until this is resolved, there will be no further cooperation. Also, that when Ruotang must be removed from the Yu Group project, otherwise, we'll see you in court. Yu Chengfeng hung up and whipped his head around to look at me. I was sitting on the sofa sipping tea. I met his gaze, tilted my head and looked utterly confused. He walked over, towering over me. His voice kept very low. Shen Qingwan, did you do this? I shook my head, my eyes wide and round, my lips trembling slightly as I typed on the tablet. What happened? I don't know anything. My fingers were shaking and my eyes were rimmed with red. I looked like a wronged, helpless rabbit. Yu Chengfeng's mind reading was working frantically. He heard my heart saying it wasn't me. It really wasn't me, I'm just a mute. What could I even do? Why do you suspect me? I'm so sad. All he heard in my heart was grievance and fear, because I knew how to deceive a mind reader. A mind reader reads whatever you are thinking, so, to lie to one, you simply need to think a set of perfect lies in your heart. Yu Chengfeng watched me for 10 seconds but heard nothing abnormal. He turned and left, the sound of the door slamming shaking the entire hall. I picked up my teacup and took a light sip. In my heart I said, idiot, of course I didn't send the evidence. When Ruotang brought this on herself, when she took those kickbacks, the cameras caught everything clearly. I just forwarded the footage, but it's fine if you blame me. After all, I put down the teacup and touched the thorn necklace around my neck. After all, I don't have long to live. Yu Chengfeng's private study was on the 3rd floor of the villa, featuring a full wall of mahogany bookshelves, leather sofas, and crystal ashtrays. Everything screamed I'm rich. He sat behind the desk, a pile of financial statements spread before him, his face grim. I walked in carrying ginseng tea, wearing a silk dressing gown with my hair down, looking very much like a virtuous wife. I set the tea on the desk and typed, you've been working hard, have some ginseng tea. Yu Chengfeng didn't look at the tea, he stared at me, his gaze like a knife. Shen Qingwan, did Ruehua's withdrawal really have nothing to do with you? I shook my head, the innocence in my eyes practically dripping like water. He stood up, walked around the desk and stopped in front of me, his 6'2" frame pressed down on me like a mountain. Then why did the chairman of Ruehua suddenly receive an anonymous email, and why was the email's IP address, after 7 layers of proxies, traced back to this address? He pointed out the window, to the U Villa's IP range. My hands trembled slightly, my typing speed slowing down a beat. I don't know, maybe someone is framing me. I don't understand any of this. How could I possibly do such a thing? Yu Chengfeng looked down at me, his mind reading in full force. What he heard in his heart was, I didn't do it, I really didn't. Why don't you ever believe me? I just want to be a good wife. Why do you hate me so much? I'm so scared. Don't look at me like that. Pure fear and grievance. His brow relaxed slightly, but he didn't fully believe me because he was too conceited. He felt he couldn't have misjudged a person so completely. He reached out and pinched my chin, forcing me to look up at him. Shen Qingwan, what exactly are you after by marrying me? I looked at him as tears fell, splashing onto his fingers. I typed on the tablet, I'm after you. I've liked you since the first time I saw you. I know you look down on me for being mute and I know you like Ruotang, but I just wanted to marry you. Even if you're just using me, I'm willing. Yu Chengfeng was stunned. His mind reading heard the exact same words in my heart, a sincere, humble, and heart-softening confession. He let go of my chin and stepped back, his expression complicated. I wiped my tears and continued typing. It's okay if you don't believe me, I'll prove it to you. Then I turned and walked out of the study, my pace slow and my shoulders shaking slightly like a wounded cat. The moment I closed the door, I said in my heart, idiot, you took the bait. Yes, I had deceived his mind reading, because every single word I just said was true. I do like Yu Chengfeng. I've liked him for 3 years. Back then, I wasn't mute. I met him for the first time at a jewelry exhibition. He was standing in front of a painting, the light outlining his profile perfectly, his gaze focused and gentle. My heart skipped a beat. Later, I investigated everything about him, his company, his family, his mind reading, and his white moonlight. I knew he was a bastard. I knew he only married me for money. I knew he had other women, but I still liked him, so I designed all of this. I married him. I plunged his U group into crisis, and I will make him lose everything, because only when he has nothing will he finally see me. It's morbid and crazy, but it's my only way, and now I really am dying. In the study, Yu Chengfeng sat alone at his desk, holding the cup of ginseng tea without drinking it. The heart voices he just heard echoed repeatedly in his mind. I like you. I've liked you since the first time I saw you. I know you look down on me for being mute. Agitated, he slammed the teacup onto the desk, splashing tea everywhere. He took out his phone and dialed a number. Check someone for me, Shen Qingwan, my wife. Check all her records from the past 5 years, employment, income, social life, medical, everything. Hanging up. He leaned back and closed his eyes. He thought of her heart voice saying old hag at the wedding. The idiot at the dinner party, and just now, I like you. This mute, how could there be so much drama in her head? He stood up and walked to the window in the garden below. Shen Qingwan sat alone on a swing, the moonlight bathing her as she kept her head down, lost in thought. His mind reading was effective within a 50-meter range. He focused his attention. He heard her heart voice. Yu Chengfeng, I'm going to die. You're finally going to be free. Yu Chengfeng's fingers suddenly gripped the window frame. What? He almost rushed down to demand answers, but his legs were nailed to the spot, because he heard another sentence. But you won't be free. I'll make you fall in love with me, and then, on the day you love me most, I'll die right in front of you. Yu Chengfeng's pupils constricted violently. He looked down at the slender figure below under the moonlight. She lifted her head, smiled at him and waved. The smile was so gentle, so quiet, a chill crawled up his spine. This woman, who exactly was she? An old Western-style house in the eastern suburbs of the city. The iron gates were rusted, and ivy covered the entire wall. From the outside, the building looked like it had been abandoned for at least 20 years, but pushing open the secret door in the basement revealed a different world. A 600 square meter open studio, temperature and humidity controlled. On the central island, black velvet was spread out, scattered with diamonds, sapphires, and emeralds, each one worth a fortune. 3 microscopes, 2 3D printing machines, and a whole wall of design sketches. This was my kingdom, the secret studio of Silent Muse. I sat at the workbench, put on white gloves, and picked up a 5-carat pigeon blood ruby, checking its facets against the light. Perfect. My phone rang, a video call from Jiyu Xingzhou. I answered, and a sharp-featured face appeared on the screen. The CEO of Jiyu Group, 32 years old, the youngest helmsman in the real estate world and my only partner in this industry. Did you receive the advance payment for their BIS series? I typed, and the text-to-speech voice played. Received, thank you, President Jiyu. Jiyu Xingzhou chuckled. Just call me Xingzhou. The contract is signed. What's the next move? I set down the ruby and typed on the screen. The U Group's Jinmao Bay project goes up for bidding next month. I want you to take that land. The floor price for that land is 3 billion. Yu Chengfeng's budget is 2.8 billion. If I bid 3.5 billion, he won't be able to hold on. No, I want you to bid 3.1 billion. Let him think he can win at the last moment. And then, a second before the hammer falls, raise the price to a number he cannot afford. Jiyu Xingzhou raised an eyebrow. You hate him. I didn't answer. I typed. On the day of the bidding, I will attend as the representative of Silent Muse. Yu Chengfeng will bring his CEO's wife to negotiate. He won't know that I am me. When that happens, I need you to cooperate and put on a show with me. What kind of show? Make him think that Silent Muse wants to acquire the U Group. Jiyu Xingzhou was silent for 3 seconds. Are you sure? This will completely crush him. I typed, I'm sure. After ending the video call, I picked up the ruby again and held it against the light. The red looked like blood, like the color of the tumor in my brain. 3 days later, the atmosphere in the U Group boardroom was so thick with tension it felt like it might explode. Yu Chengfeng sat in the chairman's seat. The bidding plan for the Jinmao Bay project spread before him. The whiteboard behind him was covered in dense numbers, every one of them a piercing red. How big is the funding gap? He asked the CFO. The CFO wiped his sweat. President Yu, 800 million. The banks say our debt-to-equity ratio is too high and they can't lend us any more. 800 million. Yu Chengfeng slammed his hand on the table. Didn't you say 500 million before? After Ruihua withdrew their investment, we lost 2 more projects and the capital chain. Enough. Yu Chengfeng closed his eyes, the veins on his temples throbbing. The boardroom door was pushed open, and a secretary poked her head in. President Yu, someone sent this. A black envelope with gold embossed letters. Silent Muse. Yu Chengfeng opened the envelope. Inside was a business card with a single line. Silent Muse is willing to inject 1 billion into the Yu Group. The condition: Mr. Yu Chengfeng must personally bring his wife to the negotiation tomorrow. Everyone in the boardroom stared at him. Yu Chengfeng placed the card on the table, his expression unreadable. Silent Muse, the most mysterious jewelry brand in the industry, the founder, M., had never appeared in public, but her designs repeatedly broke records at auctions. It was said that half of the top 20 collectors in the world were her clients. Why would a brand like that want to cooperate with the Yu Group? And why specifically ask for his wife? He grabbed his phone and dialed a number. Check Silent Muse's background for me, everything. 10 minutes later, the results were in. Silent Muse was registered in the Cayman Islands with a virtual legal identity, and all business transactions were handled through 3 layers of offshore companies. The only thing certain was that the capital behind the brand was at least 30 billion. 30 billion. Yu Chengfeng leaned back and gave a cold laugh. He had no idea that 12 billion of that was currently sitting in his wife's account that night. Yu Chengfeng returned home and unusually did not go to his study to work late. He sat on the living room sofa, holding a glass of whiskey, watching me. I was sketching on the coffee table, the pencil scratching against the paper. Qingwan, he spoke. There's a business negotiation tomorrow. You're coming with me. I looked up at him and typed on my tablet. What negotiation? Silent Muse, have you heard of them? My pen paused for a fraction of a second, then I shook my head, my expression blank. Yu Chengfeng stared at me as his mind reading activated. He heard in his heart, Silent Muse, a jewelry brand. I think I've seen them online. Why do I have to go? I don't understand business negotiations. Perfect in comprehension. He retracted his gaze and took a sip of his drink. The other party specifically asked for my wife to be present, probably some sort of social etiquette. Dress decently tomorrow. I nodded and went back to drawing. In my heart I said, decent? You don't get to decide what I wear tomorrow. I do. The next day I wore a silver grey professional dress, my hair pinned up, and a pair of pearl studs. They weren't the most expensive, but they looked the most aristocratic. Yu Chengfeng glanced at me, a flash of surprise in his eyes. You look different today. I smiled and typed. Didn't you say I should look decent? He nodded and didn't say another word. The negotiation was held in the presidential suite of a top-tier luxury hotel in the city. When we arrived, the other party hadn't shown up yet. Yu Chengfeng sat on the sofa while I stood by the window. Looking at the view, the door opened. Jiyu Xingzhou walked in, followed by 2 assistants. Yu Chengfeng stood up, his expression shifting slightly. Jiyu Group was his arch-rival. The 2 companies had been fighting over land for 3 years, constantly undermining each other. President Jiyu. Yu Chengfeng's tone turned frigid. Where is the representative from Silent Muse? Jiyu Xingzhou smiled, sat on the opposite sofa and crossed his legs. I am the representative. Yu Chengfeng's face changed completely. Silent Muse belongs to Jiyu Group. No, Silent Muse is independent. However, I have a partnership agreement with them. For today's negotiation, I have full authority to represent her. Yu Chengfeng's fingers tightened on the armrest. What do you want? Jiyu Xingzhou glanced at me, a smirk playing on his lips. It's not what I want, it's what M wants. M said she wants a private word with Mrs. Yu. Yu Chengfeng whipped his head around to look at me, looking utterly bewildered. I typed on my tablet, talk to me. About what? Jiyu Xingzhou stood up and made a please gesture. Mrs. Yu, please follow me. I looked at Yu Chengfeng. He nodded, though his eyes were filled with wariness. I followed Jiyu Xingzhou into the adjacent room and closed the door. We were the only 2 in the room. Jiyu Xingzhou leaned against the wall, arms crossed, and lowered his voice. Are you sure about this? Seeing you talk to me alone will make him suspicious. I picked up the tablet and typed. His suspicious by nature, let him wonder. And then I deleted it and retyped. And then let him know that his wife isn't the mute he imagined. I pushed the door open and walked back into the main room. Yu Chengfeng stood up immediately, his gaze scanning back and forth between Jiyu Xingzhou and me. I typed on the tablet and held it up for him to see. President Jiyu says Silent Muse is willing to inject 1 billion, but they want a 51% stake in Yu Group. Yu Chengfeng's face turned ashen instantly. Impossible, he said categorically. I turned to look at Jiyu Xingzhou. He shrugged. President Yu, it's fine if you don't agree. You only have 2 weeks left for the Jinmao Bay bidding. Without this billion, you won't even get an entry ticket. Yu Chengfeng's knuckles cracked as he clenched his fists. He looked at me, his gaze incredibly complex. I walked over, took his hand and typed, "Chengfeng, how about we go home and think about it first?" He looked down at me and his mind-reading ability activated. He heard me saying in my heart, "Get down on your knees and beg me. Aren't you good at acting? Don't you think you're so great? Come on, beg me." Yu Chengfeng's pupils constricted. He let go of my hand. "Let's go." He turned and strode toward the door. I followed behind him. As I passed Jiyu Xingzhou, we exchanged a look in the elevator. Yu Chengfeng said nothing. I stood beside him, watching the floor numbers jump. He suddenly spoke. "Shen Qingwan, do you know Jiyu Xingzhou?" I shook my head and typed, "Met him for the first time today." He stared at me for 5 seconds, mind-reading. What he heard was, "He's so scary, I'm frightened. Jiyu Xingzhou is terrifying. Why did he want to talk to me alone? I don't understand anything. Why am I being dragged into this?" He retracted his gaze and gave a cold laugh. The elevator reached the first floor and the doors opened. He strode out without waiting for me. I slowly walked out of the elevator, watching his back. In my heart I said, "Yu Chengfeng, search all you want, you won't find a thing because the person behind Silent Muse is a dead person, a person who is about to die." Yu Chengfeng spent 3 days investigating Silent Muse. He found nothing. He spent another 3 days investigating the relationship between Jiyu Xingzhou and Shen Qingwan. Still nothing. On the 7th night, he sat in his study with 2 investigation reports spread before him, looking as though he had swallowed a fly. I walked in with fruit and set it on the desk. He looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot. "Shen Qingwan, who exactly are you?" I tilted my head and typed, "Your wife." He stood up abruptly and grabbed my wrist. His grip was so tight I winced. "Stop acting." His voice was as low as a beast's growl. "Your acting is good, and your heart voices fooled me, but I don't believe it. An ordinary jewelry designer couldn't get someone like Jiyu Xingzhou to show up in person. Who are you?" I looked at him and the tears began to fall again. In my heart I said, "He's so mean, he's hurting me. I'm so scared." Hearing my heart voice, "The force in you." Chengfeng's hand loosened slightly, but this time he didn't fully believe it because he noticed something. Every time I was scared, my heart rate didn't accelerate. He looked down at my wrist. My pulse was steady, 72 beats per minute, a standard resting heart rate. Someone truly afraid should have a heart rate over 100. His eyes narrowed. "Shen Qingwan, your heart rate betrayed you." The tears were still on my face, but the corner of my mouth twitched upward only for a split second. But he caught it. He released my wrist and stepped back, looking at me as if I were a stranger. I stopped crying. I wiped my tears, picked up the tablet and typed a single line. "You finally figured it out." Yu Chengfeng's breath hitched for a second. I continued typing. "You want to know who I am? Tomorrow at 3:00 p.m. at the Silent Muse studio. Come alone." I typed the address and turned the tablet toward him. He glanced at the address and looked up. "What exactly are you trying to do?" I didn't answer. I turned and walked out of the study. At the door, I paused and looked back at him. I opened my mouth and mouthed 3 words. He understood them. "Come find me." The next day at 3:00 p.m. sharp, Yu Chengfeng appeared at the door of the old house. He wore a black trench coat, his expression guarded, like a hunter walking into a trap. The iron gate wasn't locked. He pushed it open, crossed the abandoned foyer, and found the secret door to the basement. The moment he pushed it open, he froze. A 600 square meter studio, brilliantly lit, diamonds sparkled on velvet, and a full wall of design sketches were displayed like works of art. I sat behind the central island in a white lab coat and white gloves, holding a perfectly cut yellow diamond. I looked up and smiled slightly. Yu Chengfeng stood at the door, his gaze sweeping over every corner of the studio before finally landing on me. "This is yours." I nodded. He walked in slowly, as if measuring every inch of the space. He picked up a sketch and saw the signature. In the bottom right corner, a stylized URM. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. I nodded. He put down the sketch and looked at me. His eyes filled with a complexity I couldn't decipher. "Silent Muse is yours. Jiyu Xingzhou is your partner. You engineered Ruehua's withdrawal. You were behind when Ruetang's downfall too." I nodded to every point. "Marrying me was a calculation from the very start." I shook my head. I typed, "I married you because I liked you. The calculation only started because you were going to die." Yu Chengfeng's expression froze. What? I stood up, took the medical report from the safe and handed it to him. He took it and flipped to the first page. His face changed by the second page, his hands began to shake by the third. It was as if all the strength had been drained from him. He leaned against the wall for support. Brainstem glioma, late stage, 3 months. His voice was hoarse. Is this real? I nodded. When did you find out? I typed. A week before the wedding. He closed his eyes and took 3 deep breaths when he opened them again. They were rimmed with red. So you married me to, I typed, to take revenge on you. You humiliated me at the wedding. You let Wen Ruotang stand beside me, and your mother called me a mute. I wanted to make you fall in love with me, and then die right in front of you. Yu Chengfeng's lips were trembling. His mind reading was working frantically. He heard me saying in my heart, but I lied. He looked up sharply. I typed, the part about revenge is true, but the part about liking you is also true. From the first time I saw you at the jewelry exhibition, I liked you. I knew you could read minds. I knew you had a white moonlight, and I knew you married me for money, but I still wanted to marry you. Because I'm dying. When someone is about to die, they do crazy things. Yu Chengfeng leaned against the wall and slowly slid down to the floor. He kept his head down, his shoulders shaking. I didn't know if he was crying or laughing. I walked over, knelt down, and held the tablet in front of him. Do you hate me? He looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot, tears streaming down his face. I don't hate you, he rasped, his voice like sandpaper. I hate myself. He reached out and for the first time took my hand of his own accord. I heard it, you cursing my mother at the wedding, cursing Ruotang at the dinner, cursing me in the study. I heard it all. But I never heard you say whether you were in pain. I was stunned. He took my hand and placed it over his heart. There is a tumor in your head. You have headaches every day, your ears ring and you faint, but you never once cried out in pain in your heart. You just cursed me, cursed everyone, and then hid by the safe to look at your medical report alone. Shen Qingwan, do you think no one will care if you die? My tears fell, splashing onto the back of his hand. I wanted to speak, but no sound could come from my throat. I could only mouth the words, will you care? He understood. He pulled me into his arms and held me tight. I care so damn much, it's killing me. In his arms I heard his heartbeat, so fast it felt like it might burst in my heart. I said, Yu Chengfeng, do you know those words came too late? His body stiffened. He heard me, but he didn't let go. City First People's Hospital Neurosurgery VIP consultation room. I sat in the room across from my attending physician, Zhu Yuanhang, a top neurosurgeon and one of the few people I trusted. Zhu Yuanhang looked at the latest MRI, his brow tied in a knot. Ms. Shen, the tumor has grown another 2 millimeters. It's pressing on the auditory nerve. Your hearing is declining, isn't it? I nodded and typed. I can't hear clearly in my right ear anymore. Sometimes there's a sudden ringing like an alarm going off in my head. Zhu Yuanhang sighed. Have you considered the surgery I mentioned? I typed. Is the success rate still 20%? If we do it now, 20%. If you wait another month, 10%. I typed. Then I won't do it. Zhu Yuanhang's pen dropped onto the desk. Ms. Shen. I typed. I still have things to finish. We'll talk when I'm done. I stood up and picked up my bag at the door. I looked back at him. I opened my mouth and mouthed, don't tell my husband. Zhu Yuanhang looked at me, hesitating before finally nodding. I walked out of the room and saw someone in the hallway. Yu Chengfeng. He was leaning against the hallway wall, his face pale, clutching a registration slip. He saw me and straightened up. We stared at each other for 3 seconds. He spoke first. I followed you here. I frowned and typed. Why? Because you've been sneaking out lately. I thought you. Never mind. He didn't finish. Instead he walked over, took my tablet, glanced at what I had typed, and then scrolled back to see the conversation between me and Zhu Yuanhang. Is the success rate still 20%? If we do it now, 20%. If you wait another month, 10%. Then I won't do it. Yu Chengfeng's fingers were shaking. He handed the tablet back to me, his voice very soft. Why didn't you tell me? I typed. What good would telling you do? Would you give up Wen Ruotang for me? He was silent for 3 seconds, then he said, I already have. I looked up at him. He continued. Last week I made Ruotang leave the U group. I've looked into everything she did, the kickbacks, the shorting of the stock, the cooperation with competitors. I found it all. I was stunned. He found out. When did he check? Yu Chengfeng looked at my expression and gave a bitter smile. Did you think I only know how to listen to hearts and don't know how to investigate? Shen Qingwan, I am the CEO of U Group. I'm not a useless fool. He paused. Well, I am a fool, but not in the way you think. He reached out and gently touched my forehead, his fingers resting near my temple, where the tumor was. Does it hurt here? I looked at him. I didn't type, I didn't gesture, I just looked at him. His mind reading, he heard me saying in my heart, it hurts every day, but no one ever asked. Yu Chengfeng's eyes turned red. He took my hand, lacing his fingers with mine. Let's go home. After that, Yu Chengfeng became a different person. He cancelled all his social engagements and came home on time every day. He even learned to cook, though he nearly burned the kitchen down on the first day and mistook salt for sugar on the second. By the third day, he managed to make a bowl of edible tomato and egg noodles. He sat across from me, watching me eat the noodles, as nervous as if he were waiting for exam results. Is it good? I nodded. He let out a sigh of relief and lowered his head. To eat his noodles, I said in my mind, this is salty as hell, but I don't want to discourage you. His lip twitched as he looked up. He heard me. I'll use less salt next time. My eyes widened. He smiled. I heard you. You said it was salty as hell. I picked up my tablet and typed, you heard me. Yet you still asked. I wanted to hear you say it was delicious. I typed it. I want to hear you say it out loud. I looked at him and opened my mouth. From my throat came a raspy, broken okay. The word sounded as harsh as a saw cutting through wood, but Yu Chengfeng's eyes welled up. He reached over and squeezed my hand. Say it again. I tried once more. This time it was even raspier and more broken, like wind blowing through an old ruined organ. He cried, a 6'2" cold CEO type. A man who usually kept a frozen expression, sat at the dining table with a bowl of tomato and egg noodles and sobbed like a child. Shen Qingwan, you are not allowed to die. He wiped away his tears, his tone bossy. Do you hear me? You aren't allowed to die, I said in my mind. You don't get to decide that. He heard me and cried even harder. That night I collapsed in the bathroom. I was jolted awake by a violent headache. It felt as if someone were driving a nail into my temple. The world began to spin. I couldn't grab onto anything and slammed onto the tiles. The back of my head hit the edge of the bathtub and I felt a warm liquid trickling down. I heard someone calling my name. It felt distant, as if I were underwater. Qingwan, Qingwan. Yu Chengfeng kicked the door open when he saw me lying in a pool of blood. His face turned ashen. He scooped me up and sprinted downstairs like a madman. In his arms, my consciousness was fading. All I could see were the beads of sweat on his chin and the hallway lights blurring past. His heart was hammering against my ear like a drum. I closed my eyes and said in my mind, don't save me, just let me die. Living is too exhausting. Yu Chengfeng's grip tightened as if he wanted to pull me into his very bones. You are not allowed to die. His voice was trembling. Do you hear me, Shen Qingwan? You are not allowed to die. The lights in the ER were blinding. I was wheeled in for a CT scan, and Yu Chengfeng was blocked at the door. I heard him punching the wall outside, once, twice, 3 times. Each thud felt like it was hitting my own heart. When Zhu Yuanhang stepped out of the ER, Yu Chengfeng lunged at him. How is she? Cerebral hemorrhage. The tumor put pressure on a blood vessel, causing it to rupture. We've stabilized it for now, but if she doesn't have surgery, the next one could be a brain herniation. Then do the surgery. Ms. Shen has been refusing the operation. Why? Zhu Yuanhang hesitated. She said she has unfinished business. Yu Chengfeng leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. What business? Zhu Yuanhang didn't answer, but I could imagine his expression, helpless, sympathetic, and a hint of anger. Yu Chengfeng stood outside the ER for a long time. His mind-reading ability reached through the walls trying to catch my voice. He heard it. Yu Chengfeng, don't cry, it's not like you love me anyway. His eyes snapped open and he strode into the room. I was lying on the bed, my head wrapped in gauze, my face as pale as paper. He walked over, took my hand and knelt by the bed. Shen Qingwan, there's something I never told you. I looked at him. I can read minds. I've known since day one. At the wedding, you called my mother an old hag, called when Ruotang a village bicycle, and called me an idiot. I heard it all. My eyes went wide. I didn't tell you because at first I didn't care. Curse all you want. I thought you were just a mute. Then I found it amusing. The way you cursed people in your head was much more interesting than your face. And then, his voice cracked. Then I started looking forward to your thoughts. I wanted to know who you were cussing out today. I wanted to hear you say my name in your heart. I wanted to hear. He lowered his head, resting his forehead against the back of my hand. To hear you say that you love me. My tears rolled down my cheeks and into my hair. I heard it, he said, looking up with eyes as red as a rabbit's. I heard what you said at the wedding. You said you loved me, that you've loved me since the first time you saw me. I thought you were acting, I thought you were lying. But your heartbeat gave you away. Every time you think about loving me, your heart rate jumps to 120. A person who's dying wouldn't waste such precious time acting. He stood up, leaned over, and pressed his lips to my forehead. Shen Qingwan, we're doing the surgery. I don't care about the cost or the risks. I want you alive. I opened my mouth, unable to make a sound, but I mouthed the words 20%. He nodded. 20% is better than 0%. I said in my mind, what if I die? He closed his eyes and pressed his forehead against mine. Then I'll come find you and I'll record your inner thoughts and play them on a loop until you're so annoyed you come back to life. I laughed in my heart. With his forehead against mine, he smiled too. The surgery was scheduled for 2 weeks later. During those 2 weeks, Yu Chengfeng barely left my side. He moved his office to the hospital, holding video conferences in my room every day with his keyboard clacking away. Zhao Lanji visited once. When she saw Yu Chengfeng peeling an apple for me, her face twisted in disgust. Chengfeng, have you lost your mind? A mute, is she really worth all this? Yu Chengfeng didn't even look up. Mom, get out. I am your mother. Get out. His voice was like ice. Now. Zhao Lanji trembled with rage, pointing a finger at me. Shen Qingwan, did you put some kind of spell on him? I smiled and typed on my tablet, Mom, you're overthinking it, I'm just dying and he pities me. Zhao Lanji froze. Yu Chengfeng stood up, shielding me. Mom, leave. She slammed the door and left. Yu Chengfeng sat back down and continued peeling the apple. Halfway through, the blade nicked his finger, blood dripped onto the fruit. He glanced at it, tossed the apple in the trash and grabbed a new one. I said in my mind, your mom is right, I'm not worth it. He looked up at me. You are, you're worth it to me. I turned my head away, refusing to look at him. My mind said, you can't even peel an apple right. He chuckled. Then I'll learn. And learn he did. He learned how to cook, how to use sign language, and how to care for a patient. He even learned how to pretend he couldn't hear my inner voice, like when I complained the apple skin was too thick, the porridge was too thin, or the music he played was terrible. He heard it all, but he just smiled and quietly improved. I felt like he was putting on an act. A man used to being in control couldn't possibly turn into a perfect husband in just 2 weeks. But I had no proof, until one day a private investigator delivered a file. I waited until Yu Chengfeng left for a meeting at the company before opening the manila envelope. Inside were all of Wen Ruotang's records from the past year, bank statements, hotel check-in records, screenshots of WeChat chats and equity transfer documents. I went through them page by page, my heart sinking further with each one. Wen Ruotang was maintaining intimate relationships with the CEOs of 3 different real estate companies at the same time, Jiyu Xingzhou and 2 of Ucorp's rivals. She used them to get insider information and short Ucorp's stock. She had made at least 80 million in the past year. Even more ruthless, she had secretly registered a shell company and through a complex equity structure held a 5% stake in Ucorp. She had bought those shares using the breakup fee Yu Chengfeng had given her. I set the photos down and picked up my phone to text him. When are you coming back? He replied instantly. 30 minutes. I put all the evidence back into the bag and placed it on the nightstand. Then I leaned back against the pillows and waited. Half an hour later, Yu Chengfeng pushed the door open, carrying the Osmanthus cakes I liked. He paused when he saw the envelope. What's this? See for yourself. He set the cakes down, opened the bag and flipped through the pages. I watched his face turn from normal to livid, then pale, then a flushed red, the color of pure fury. When he reached the last page, he threw the photos onto the bed and took a deep breath. When did you get these? I typed, this morning. He closed his eyes, a vein throbbing in his temple. Why didn't you give them to me sooner? I typed, because I wanted to see if you'd figure it out on your own. He fell silent. I continued typing. You investigated so much, you looked into my past, Silent Muse and Gu Xingzhou, but did you ever once check on your white moonlight? Yu Chengfeng's lips thinned into a hard line. You didn't. I typed, because you couldn't bear to, because you thought she was the purest woman on earth. Shen Qingwan, my fingers flew across the screen. She's sleeping with 3 men at the same time, using your money to buy your stock and working with your rivals to tank your company. She's not just bleeding you dry, she's picking your bones clean. Yu Chengfeng's hands were shaking. I typed. But you still won't hate her, will you? Because she's your first love, because you've loved her for 5 years. He snapped his head up. I don't, you do. I put the tablet down after those 2 words and closed my eyes. I didn't want to see him, I didn't want him to see my eyes because my eyes were asking, what about me? Are you good to me out of pity, or have you actually fallen for me? His mind reading caught it. He walked over, sat on the edge of the bed and took my hand. Shen Qingwan, listen to me. I didn't open my eyes. The way I felt about Wen Ruotang, that's in the past. I thought she was kind, gentle, and that she understood me, but I see it now. Her kindness had an agenda, her gentleness was for profit, and she understood me because she was calculating my every move. You called me an idiot, you were right. I am an idiot, he paused, but I'm not so stupid that I can't tell what's real from what's fake anymore. When you curse me in your head, it's real. When you say you love me in your heart, that's real. 2. You're protecting me while you're getting revenge, you're loving me while you're hating me. Shen Qingwan, you aren't my white moonlight, you're my sun. The moon only reflects someone else's light, but the sun creates its own. I opened my eyes and looked at him. His eyes were rimmed with red, but he was wearing a slight smile. You bastard. I mouthed the words. He laughed. You're cussing at me again. I pulled an envelope from under my pillow and handed it to him. He opened it. Inside was an invitation. Wen Ruotang's engagement party 3 days from now. The groom was Jiyu Xingzhou. Yu Chengfeng's expression froze. I typed. I had Jiyu Xingzhou ask her out. He wanted to see just how greedy this woman really is. And she said yes because she thinks Jiyu Xingzhou is richer than you. Yu Chengfeng tore the invitation to shreds and tossed it into the trash. What do you want me to do? I typed, go to the engagement party, take me with you. To do what? I typed, expose her. Yu Chengfeng looked at me and stayed silent for a long time. Finally he nodded. Okay. When Ruotang's engagement party was held at another ultra-luxury hotel in the city, and the scale was even grander than my wedding. White roses covered the entire hall. The champagne tower was 6 tiers high. And the guest list included half of the business world and half of the entertainment industry. I wore a wine-red gown, and around my neck was the unreleased Nemesis series from Silent Muse, a choker woven from 300 rubies that looked like congealed blood. Yu Chengfeng, in a black suit, stood by my side as we walked into the hall. Every gaze in the room shifted toward us. Whispers rose like a tide. Yu Chengfeng is here. Didn't he? And Wen Ruotang, he brought his wife, that mute girl. What's the deal? An ex-boyfriend showing up for his ex-girlfriend's engagement. When Ruotang stood on the main stage clinging to Jiyu Xingzhou's arm, the moment she saw Yu Chengfeng, her smile faltered for a split second, but only for a second. She immediately regained her perfect smile, stepped off the stage and glided toward us. Chengfeng, you came. Her voice was as soft as a spring breeze. I didn't think you'd make it. She glanced at me, a flash of disdain in her eyes quickly replaced by pity. Sister Qingwan is here too. How is your health? I heard you were hospitalized. I smiled and nodded, typing on my tablet. Much better, thank you for asking. Congratulations on your engagement. When Ruotang's smile grew even more radiant. Thank you, Sister Qingwan. Oh, let me introduce you to my fiancé. Jiyu Xingzhou walked over and stood beside Wen Ruotang. He gave me a look, his lips curling into an almost imperceptible smirk. President Yu, Mrs. Yu, welcome. Yu Chengfeng looked at Jiyu Xingzhou, his eyes like two blades. President Jiyu, congratulations. Engaged so soon. Jiyu Xingzhou smiled slightly. When you meet the right person, there's no reason to wait. When Ruotang leaned into Jiyu Xingzhou's arms, lowering her head bashfully. In my head I thought, the right person. Jiyu Xingzhou, you know she was in your bed just 3 months ago. Aren't you getting a bit too into character for this play of ours? Jiyu Xingzhou obviously couldn't hear my thoughts, but seeing the look in my eyes, he gave a slight nod, signaling that everything is going according to plan. The engagement ceremony began. The MC stood on stage reciting the usual Kleicher blessings under the spotlights. When Ruotang and Jiyu Xingzhou exchanged rings, the audience erupted in thunderous applause. Standing beside me, Yu Chengfeng's fists clenched so hard his knuckles cracked. I reached out, took his hand and gave it a firm squeeze. He looked down at me. I mouthed the words, wait for it. After the ceremony, the banquet began. When Ruotang moved through the crowd with a wine glass, toasting the guests. When she passed by us, Yu Chengfeng stopped her. Ruotang, I have a few words for you. When Ruotang glanced at Jiyu Xingzhou, he nodded. Go ahead. She followed Yu Chengfeng out onto the balcony. I stood in the hall watching their silhouettes. 3 minutes later, Yu Chengfeng walked back, his face ashen. She denied it, he whispered. She said the evidence was forged, that someone was setting her up. I typed, and you believed her. No, but I need more direct proof. I took a USB drive out of my clutch and handed it to him. What's this? I typed. Surveillance footage from Jiyu Xingzhou's private club from last night. Yu Chengfeng's eyes widened. How did you get this? I typed. Jiyu Xingzhou gave it to me. He said he doesn't like being played for a fool. Yu Chengfeng held the USB drive, his fingers trembling. He walked up to the stage and grabbed the microphone. The room fell silent. Everyone, excuse me, I need to interrupt for a moment. All heads turned toward him, standing in the crowd. When Ruotang's face began to turn pale, Yu Chengfeng held up the USB drive. I have a video here. It's surveillance footage of our leading lady tonight, Miss Wen Ruotang, at Mr. Jiyu Xingzhou's private club last night. The crowd gasped when Ruotang's face went from white to green. Chengfeng, have you lost your mind? What are you talking about? Yu Chengfeng ignored her and continued. In the recording, Miss Wen discusses how to carve up the Yu Corporation's assets with Mr. Jiyu. The condition, Miss Wen hands over the Yu Corporation's core client list to the Jiyu Group. Jiyu Xingzhou stood on stage expressionless when Ruotang rushed up trying to grab the mic. You're lying, you forged it. Yu Chengfeng dodged her, his voice cold as ice. Forged, feel free to call the police, but I suggest you watch this first. He plugged the USB into the computer, and the projection screen flickered to life in the video when Ruotang was sitting on a sofa with Jiyu Xingzhou opposite her. When Ruotang's voice echoed through the speakers, I can get the Yu Corporation's core client list within a month, but I want a 10% stake in the Yu Corporation. Jiyu Xingzhou, 5%. When Ruotang, 8%. Jiyu Xingzhou, deal. The room was deathly quiet when Ruotang stood on stage, her whole body shaking as tears streamed down her face. No, that's not real, it's an AI deepfake. No one believed her. Every detail in the footage was crystal clear, the ring on her finger, the necklace around her neck, the way the corner of her mouth habitually twitched when she spoke. Yu Chengfeng turned off the projector, put down the mic and walked off the stage. He came over to me and held out his hand. Let's go. I took his hand and stood up as we pushed through the crowd and passed when Ruotang, she suddenly lunged forward, grabbing my arm. It was you, you did this, didn't you? You set this up. I looked at her and gave a small smile. In my mind I said it was me, but you have no right to be angry. You did so many disgusting things. I'm just laying them out in the open, it's called karma. Yu Chengfeng stepped in front of me, prying Wen Ruotang's fingers off my arm one by one. Don't touch her, he said, his voice so low it sounded like it came from the depths of hell. When Ruotang collapsed to the floor, her makeup ruined by her crying, Jiyu Xingzhou stood on the stage and picked up the microphone, his voice as calm as a weather report. Everyone, I'm sorry, the engagement is cancelled, drinks are on me tonight, please help yourselves. Then he walked off the stage. As he passed us we exchanged a look. I gave a slight nod, he nodded back and strode away. In the car on the way home, Yu Chengfeng didn't say a word. I sat in the passenger seat, watching the neon lights blur past the window. He suddenly spoke. Are you satisfied now? I turned to look at him. His eyes were fixed on the road ahead, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. You engineered all of this, you got Jiyu Xingzhou to seduce Ruotang, you got the surveillance footage, and you had me expose her in front of everyone. Are you satisfied? I typed on my tablet. Does your heart ache for her? He didn't answer. I continued typing. She spent the night at Jiyu Xingzhou's club last night. Does your heart still ache? Yu Chengfeng slammed on the brakes and the car screeched to a halt by the roadside. He turned to me, his eyes bloodshot. Shen Qingwan, are you testing me? I didn't type anything, I just looked at him, his mind reading. He heard my inner voice say, yes, I am testing you. I want to know if you're being good to me because you pity me, or because you truly don't love her anymore. Yu Chengfeng was silent for a long time, then he reached out and pulled my head onto his shoulder. I don't love her anymore, he said, his voice muffled. Ever since the day you called her a public bus in your head, I stopped loving her. I froze, because I realized you were right, she was using me all along and I was just lying to myself, but I didn't have the courage to face it because I was too arrogant. I would rather believe a liar than admit I was wrong about someone. But you're different. You scold me and you say some pretty nasty things, but you're real. He lowered his head, his lips pressing against my hair. Shen Qingwan, stop testing me, my life is in your hands. What more is there to test? I closed my eyes on his shoulder. In my mind I said, fine, no more testing. He heard it, and his arms tightened around me. 3 days before the surgery, Yu Chengfeng held a marathon board meeting at the office. When he returned, his face was calm, eerily calm. I was sitting on the living room sofa when I saw him come in. I typed on my tablet. What happened? He walked over, sat beside me, and took a document out of his briefcase, placing it on the coffee table. I looked down. An equity transfer agreement. Yu Chengfeng was transferring his 51% stake in the Yu Corporation to Shen Qingwan for free. I looked up at him. Sign it, he said. I didn't move. I typed, why? Because it belongs to you. I frowned. He continued, I looked into it over the past 6 months. Through Silent Muse's partnership with the GU Group, you indirectly acquired a 37% stake in Yu Corp. Combined with the 14% you bought on the open market, you are already the majority shareholder. He paused and gave a bitter smile. You gained control of the company even before I did. I'm just turning fact into law. I watched him, not typing. He went on. Also, I bought back that 5% when Ruotang held. It cost me triple the price. But it was worth it now. 56% of the Yu Corporation is in your name. You are the chairperson. I typed, and what about you? Me, he smiled. I'll work for you. Yu Chengfeng. Working for Shen Qingwan sounds pretty good. I stared at him for 10 seconds. I typed, you're crazy. If you give the company to me, your mother will kill you. I'll handle my mother. When Ruotang will sue you, she won't dare. I have too much dirt on her. Your board of directors won't agree. They already did. It took me 3 hours to convince them. I put down the tablet and looked at him. He was smiling, but there was something in that smile I couldn't quite read. In my head I asked, why are you doing this? He heard me. He reached out, took my hand and said softly, because I owe you. On the day you married me, I was holding another woman's hand at the wedding. You were cursing me in your head, but you smiled at me on stage. On the day you collapsed in the hospital, you said let me die in your heart. I stood outside the ER and for the first time I felt that if this person dies, my life is over. Shen Qingwan, I'm not compensating you. I'm begging you. His voice began to tremble. I'm begging you to live, begging you to give me a chance, begging you not to make me a man who can't even keep the person he loves. My tears began to fall. I opened my mouth and a hoarse, broken syllable escaped my throat. He waited. I tried again. Okay. The word was as light as a breeze, but he heard it. He pulled me into his arms and held me tight, so tight I could hear his heartbeat. It was at 160, like it was about to explode. In his arms I thought, Yu Chengfeng, if I'd known you'd be like this earlier, I might not have been so willing to die. His body stiffened. He heard me. He didn't speak. He just held me tighter. That night I collapsed in the bathroom again. This time was worse than the last. I lost consciousness in the tub and slipped under. Swallowing a lot of water, Yu Chengfeng broke down the door again and pulled me out. He performed CPR, pressing so hard my ribs ached. I coughed up water and opened my eyes to see his face drenched. I couldn't tell if it was sweat or tears. Shen Qingwan, his voice was raspy. You scared the life out of me. I lay in his arms, soaking wet and shivering with cold. He wrapped me in a bath towel, carried me to bed and started drying my hair. The hairdryer hummed and his hands were shaking. I closed my eyes and heard him speak from behind me. Surgery tomorrow. We aren't waiting anymore. I didn't have the strength to argue. The night before the surgery, Yu Chengfeng didn't go home. He stayed by my hospital bed, sitting in a chair and holding my hand, not sleeping a wink. At 3:00 am, I woke up in pain. My head felt like someone was setting off fireworks inside my brain. I opened my eyes and saw Yu Chengfeng slumped over the side of the bed, asleep. His hand was still gripping mine, his knuckles pale. I didn't wake him. I just watched him in his sleep. He didn't look like a domineering CEO. He looked like an exhausted, ordinary man. His brow was slightly furrowed and the corners of his mouth turned down, as if he were having a bad dream. In my mind, I said, Yu Chengfeng, if I die on the operating table, you have to promise me one thing. He bolted awake. He looked up, his eyes bloodshot, and stared at me. What did you say? I was stunned. He had heard me. What you just said in your head. You said if you die on the operating table, I have to promise you something. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. I grabbed the tablet from the nightstand and typed, make Silent Muse the #1 brand in the world. That's my life's work. Yu Chengfeng read the line and stayed silent for a long time. Then he set the tablet aside, took both my hands in his and kissed them. You aren't going to die, he said. I won't let you die. He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper as if talking to himself. If you die, I'll record your inner thoughts and play them on a loop. I'll listen to them every day until I'm old. I glared at him. He was smiling, but tears were falling. And then I'll come find you. You'll be in heaven scolding me, and I won't be able to hear you from hell, so you'll have to come down and get me. I reached out and wiped the tears from his face. I mouthed, "You're a psycho." He laughed. "You're scolding me again." I mouthed, "I love you. I've loved you for 3 years, you idiot." Yu Chengfeng buried his face in my palms, his shoulders shaking violently. He was crying like a child. I stroked his hair and thought, "Stop crying, I'm not dead yet." He looked up, his eyes swollen like walnuts and his nose red, his lips trembling. "Shen Qingwan, if you dare to die, I'll haunt you even as a ghost." I smiled. In my head I said, "Fine, then we'll be ghosts together." He laughed through his tears. The day of the surgery at 6:00 am, the nurses came to prep me. Yu Chengfeng hadn't slept all night. He sat by the bed, his eyes as red as a rabbit's. He helped me into my surgical gown, his movements clumsy but gentle, as if he were packing a piece of fragile porcelain. "Nervous?" he asked. I shook my head. I typed on the tablet, 20% success rate if it fails. "Don't blame me." He took the tablet, deleted the sentence, and typed a new one, 100% success rate because I'm here. I looked at those words and smiled. In my head I asked, "When did you learn to say things like that?" He heard me and gave a smug grin. "I learned from you. You're saying sweet things in your head every day." It rubbed off on me. I glared at him. I mouthed, "When did I ever say sweet things?" "Whenever you're scolding me in your head," he said with total seriousness. "When you think Yu Chengfeng, you idiot. All I hear is Yu Chengfeng, you're so handsome." I reached out to swat him. He caught my hand and kissed it. "Shen Qingwan, when you wake up I have something to tell you." I tilted my head. "I won't tell you, we'll talk when you wake up." I rolled my eyes. "You'd better not wait until I wake up." I thought, what if I never do? His expression shifted instantly. "Shen Qingwan, don't say things like that." I smiled faintly and fell silent. At 7 o'clock, the nurses arrived with a gurney to take me away. Yu Chengfeng walked with me to the doors of the operating room before being stopped. "Family members must wait outside, please." He stood at the door, his eyes fixed on me lying on the bed. I gave him a small wave. He was smiling, but tears were streaming down his face. "Shen Qingwan," he suddenly called out. I turned my head toward him. "You owe me a sentence." I frowned. "When you said I love you, you only mouthed the words. That doesn't count. I want to hear your voice." I opened my mouth, a raspy, broken sound escaping my throat. "That's enough," he said. "Tell me the rest when you come out." The doors to the operating room swung shut. The surgical lights flickered on, their harsh glare making me squint. Ju Yuanhang, dressed in surgical scrubs, stood before me and looked down. "Ms. Shen, are you ready?" I nodded. He placed an oxygen mask over my face. "The anesthesiologist will count down. You'll be asleep by the time you hear 10. I closed my eyes. The anesthesiologist's voice drifted in from a great distance. 1, 2, 3, Yu Chengfeng," I whispered in my mind. "If I die, you'd better make silent muse #1 in the world. For 5, 6, if I live, 7, 8, I want you to win me over all over again. 9, I lost consciousness. The surgery lasted 14 hours. For 14 hours, Yu Chengfeng stood outside the operating room. He didn't sit, he didn't drink water, and he didn't look at his phone. He simply stood there, staring at the red light above the door. Zhao Lanji arrived and spent half an hour screaming in the hallway. "Have you lost your mind, giving her the company? She's just a mute." Yu Chengfeng turned to her, his gaze as cold as a blade. "Mom, if you say one more word against her, I'm cutting ties with you for good." Zhao Lanji froze, trembling with rage before turning on her heel and storming off. Jiyu Xingzhou arrived and brought a cup of coffee. Yu Chengfeng didn't take it. "I'm not drinking anything until she wakes up." Jiyu Xingzhou set the coffee on a chair and leaned against the wall, waiting with him. "Do you know why she hates you?" Jiyu Xingzhou asked suddenly. Yu Chengfeng didn't answer. "It wasn't because of Wen Ruotang, it wasn't even because of your mother," Jiyu Xingzhou said. "It was because the first time she saw you at the jewelry exhibition, you were looking at a painting. She stood right beside you and smiled at you. You never even looked at her." Yu Chengfeng's fingers tightened into a fist. "When she went home, she looked up everything about you. She knew you could read minds, she knew about your first love, and she knew your company was short on cash. She thought if she appeared as Silent Muse, you would notice her, but she didn't dare because she was afraid you'd only want her for the money, so she chose the most foolish path, marrying you, letting you use her, and then slowly letting you discover her value while you were busy exploiting her." Jiyu Xingzhou paused. She's a genius designer, but she's an absolute idiot when it comes to love. Yu Chengfeng closed his eyes. I know, he rasped. I know everything, her inner thoughts, the words she never spoke, the medical records she hid. I know it all. Then why didn't you? Because I was too arrogant. Yu Chengfeng opened his eyes. I thought I could control everything. I thought mind reading let me see through everyone, but I couldn't see through her, because what she thought and what she showed on her face were worlds apart. She'd be smiling while cursing me in her head. She'd be crying while laughing at me in her heart. Her face would say it's fine while her soul was screaming go to hell. I thought she was acting, but I realized later it wasn't an act, she was just too used to it. Used to hiding all her pain inside and using insults as a release because she couldn't make a sound. Yu Chengfeng's voice choked up. She couldn't speak, she cursed me for 3 months and I listened. For 3 months, but in all that time I never once heard her say that she was in pain. The operating room light went out. Yu Chengfeng rushed to the door, it swung open, and Zhu Yuanhang stepped out. Pulling off his mask, Yu Chengfeng stared at him, his lips trembling. Zhu Yuanhang remained silent for 3 seconds. Those 3 seconds felt like 3 centuries. Then Zhu Yuanhang smiled. The surgery was a success, the tumor has been completely removed, she's still unconscious but her vitals are stable. Yu Chengfeng's legs gave out, he leaned against the wall and slid down to the floor, covering his face with his hands. He wept. Jiyu Xingzhou handed him the coffee. You can drink it now. Yu Chengfeng took the cup, his hands shaking so much that half of it spilled. He took a sip, it was as bitter as medicine. But he smiled. Shen Qingwan woke up, but her eyes were hollow. She stared at the ceiling, the four drip, and the sunlight outside the window as if looking at a foreign world. Yu Chengfeng, who was resting his head by the bed, felt her hand move and snapped his head up. Qingwan. Shen Qingwan turned to look at him, her gaze bewildered. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She picked up the tablet on the nightstand and typed a single line. Who are you? The smile froze on Yu Chengfeng's face. He turned sharply to Zhu Yuanhang. Zhu Yuanhang checked her pupil response and brainwaves. His expression grave. Post-operative retrograde amnesia. The tumor was pressing on the hippocampus and the surgery inevitably affected the memory center. She has lost the last 3 years of her memory. Yu Chengfeng's voice was trembling. 3 years, does that include me? Zhu Yuanhang nodded. Including you, including your marriage, including Silent Muse, including everything. Yu Chengfeng leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. Shen Qingwan sat in bed, looking at this strange man. His eyes were red and swollen, he had heavy stubble and his clothes were rumpled as if he hadn't slept in days. She typed on the tablet, "What are you to me?" Yu Chengfeng opened his eyes and looked at her. He took a deep breath and said, "I'm your husband." Shen Qingwan tilted her head, looking puzzled. "I'm married to whom?" "To me." "Why, I don't look like the type of person who would get married." Yu Chengfeng gave a bitter laugh. "You're right about that. You married me to get revenge." Shen Qingwan frowned. "Revenge? What did you do?" "A lot. I held another woman's hand at our wedding. My mother called you a mute. And I looked down on you because you couldn't speak. You cursed me in your head for 3 months. And I heard every bit of it." Shen Qingwan typed, "I have mind-reading powers." "No, I'm the one who can read minds. And you heard me cursing you in my head, every single word." Shen Qingwan stared at him for 10 seconds. Then looked down to type. "Then I must really hate you." Yu Chengfeng nodded. "You hate me very much. Then why are you still here?" Yu Chengfeng was silent for a long time, then he said, "Because later on you didn't hate me anymore." Shen Qingwan watched him, waiting for him to continue. He went on, "You cursed me in your heart for 3 months. But you said many other things too. You said you liked me, that you'd liked me since the first time we met. You said you wanted to make me fall in love with you, and then die right in front of me on the day I loved you most." Shen Qingwan's expression shifted. "You said you were dying, that there was a tumor in your head and the doctors gave you 3 months. You married me for revenge but also to experience being loved once before you died." Shen Qingwan looked down at the tablet, her fingers hovering over the screen without typing. After a long while she typed one line. "So, do you love me?" Yu Chengfeng looked at her, his eyes welling up. "I do." "When did it start?" "The day you called me a dumbass in your head." Shen Qingwan looked at the words and suddenly laughed. She typed, "Then I must love you very much because you only think someone is a dumbass if you love them." Yu Chengfeng began to cry. He walked over, sat on the edge of the bed and took her hand. "Shen Qingwan, it doesn't matter if you don't remember me. I can win you over again. We'll start from zero." Shen Qingwan looked at him and tilted her head. "How will you do that?" First, an introduction. My name is Yu Chengfeng, I'm 32 years old and I'm the CEO of the Yu Group. My hobby is listening to you curse me in your head. Shen Qingwan smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. She typed on the tablet, Hello Yu Chengfeng, my name is Shen Qingwan, I'm 26 years old and I'm a jewelry designer. My hobby is cursing you in my head. Yu Chengfeng laughed through his tears. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it. It's a pleasure to meet you all over again. Shen Qingwan looked at this man. He cried like a child and laughed like one too. A voice spoke in her mind very softly, as if drifting in from a great distance. Yu Chengfeng, you dumbass. She didn't know what the words meant, but her heart suddenly began to race. 1 year later, Paris, on the final night of Fashion Week, the Silent Muse grand finale was held in the exhibition hall beneath the Louvre. The world's top buyers, media outlets, and collectors were gathered. Every one of the 300 seats was filled. The hall was decorated like a black ocean, the lighting dim and the air thick with the scent of cedar and amber. The runway was a glass path with black sand and diamond shards spread beneath it, shimmering like a galaxy under the lights. I stood backstage wearing a silver-white gown. Around my neck was the centerpiece of the latest Silent Muse collection, Rebirth. It was a necklace woven from 3,000 diamonds, featuring a 50-carat blue diamond at its center, cut into the shape of a teardrop. It was priceless, but its meaning was far more important than its price tag. This was the first collection I had designed after regaining my memory. Yes, I remembered, not everything, but enough I remembered. The day I first saw Yu Chengfeng at the jewelry exhibition. Standing before a painting, his profile perfectly outlined by the lights, I remembered the insults he heard in my head at the wedding. I remembered him making tomato and egg noodles in the kitchen and mistaking the salt for sugar. I remembered him standing outside the operating room for 14 hours. I remembered him crying by my hospital bed saying, It's a pleasure to meet you all over again. I remembered all the things that mattered. As for that unimportant person, Wen Ruotang, she had been completely erased from my memory. Yu Chengfeng sat in the front row, wearing a black suit and the tie I had chosen for him, a deep blue that matched the color of his eyes. He looked as nervous as a student waiting for exam results, because tonight, I was going to do the one thing he had been waiting a whole year for. The show began, the music swelled and models wearing Silent Muse jewelry stepped onto the runway. Every step on the diamond shards created a delicate, crunching sound. The Abyss series, the Thorns series, the Nemesis series and finally the Rebirth series, 4 collections, 68 pieces in total. Every single one was my heart's work. The audience erupted in applause, and the camera flashes turned the room into a sea of light. After the final model left the stage, the lights dimmed for 3 seconds, then a single spotlight hit the end of the runway. I was standing there, the entire hall fell silent. I stepped onto the runway, my silver-white gown trailing behind me like a flowing galaxy. I walked to the center of the stage and stood under the spotlight. 300 pairs of eyes were fixed on me. I picked up the microphone, my hand was trembling. In the front row, Yu Chengfeng leaned forward, his hands gripping his knees. I took a deep breath and then I spoke, Hello everyone. My voice was hoarse and deep, sounding like wood rubbed with sandpaper, yet it was clear and real. Every word came out distinctly. The entire audience held their breath for a second, then a burst of gasps erupted. The founder of Silent Muse, the legendary mute designer M, had spoken. I am Shen Qingwan. My voice echoed through the exhibition hall, the founder of Silent Muse and Yu Chengfeng's wife. Below the stage, Yu Chengfeng's tears were already falling. I looked at him and asked, Yu Chengfeng, back when you married me, did you think a mute would be an easy target? The crowd burst into laughter. On the floor, Yu Chengfeng was laughing through his tears, wiping them away with the back of his hand though. He couldn't keep up with them. I continued, but the second thing I want to say is, I paused for a moment, looking into his eyes. Thank you for hearing my heart. Yu Chengfeng stood up, pushed back his chair and strode onto the catwalk. He reached me, swept me up in his arms and spun me around. The entire audience stood for a standing ovation, the applause surging toward us like a tidal wave. He set me down, his forehead resting against mine, his lips brushing against my own. Shen Qingwan, his voice was trembling. I love you. I've loved you since the very first day you cursed me out in your head. I smiled and said in my raspy voice, I know I love you too. I've loved you since the day you cooked me that bowl of tomato and egg noodles. He kissed me under the gaze of 300 people in a sea of camera flashes. On the silent Muse runway he kissed me. I closed my eyes and said in my heart, "You Chengfeng, I'm going to live. Don't you ever dream of being free again." He didn't hear it because this time I didn't need him to use telepathy to listen. I said it out loud. "You Chengfeng, I'm going to live. Don't you ever dream of being free again." He broke the kiss, looked at me and smiled. I wouldn't have it any other way. 1 year later, Silent Muse became the world's leading jewelry brand. Under Shen Qingwan's controlling interest, the U Group successfully pivoted, becoming a benchmark for high-end commercial complexes. Yu Chengfeng learned to cook 3 more dishes besides tomato and egg noodles: braised fish, stir-fried seasonal greens, and chicken soup. Although the taste was average, Shen Qingwan told him they were delicious every single time. Zhao Lanji visited Shen Qingwan for the first time after her surgery. She brought a bouquet of flowers and said, "I'm sorry." Shen Qingwan accepted the flowers. She didn't say it's okay, but she designed a jade necklace for Zhao Lanji, an authentic piece worth 23 million, when Ruotang vanished from the public eye after the engagement party incident. It was rumored she went to Southeast Asia and used her remaining money to open a SPA. Yu Chengfeng didn't press legal charges against her, not out of a soft heart but because Shen Qingwan said, "Forget it, she hasn't had it easy either." Jiyu Xingzhou collaborated even more closely with Shen Qingwan after the engagement incident. He later admitted that he agreed to play along not for commercial interests but because I also wanted to see how much energy a person facing death could truly have. Shen Qingwan's vocal cords gradually recovered after the surgery, but her voice always retained a hint of raspiness. She didn't like the sound, but Yu Chengfeng said, "It's the most beautiful sound in the world, because it's your voice." They never held another wedding, Yu Chengfeng said. "The first wedding was a mess. I want to make the second one perfect." Shen Qingwan replied, "There's no need. You cooking me a bowl of tomato and egg noodles every day is the best wedding I could ask for." Every morning at 6, Yu Chengfeng gets up, cooks the noodles, brings them to the bedside and wakes Shen Qingwan. After finishing the noodles, Shen Qingwan types on her tablet, "The salt was just right today." Yu Chengfeng grins, "That's because I heard you complaining in your head that I put too much in." Shen Qingwan glares at him. "Then why did you still put it in?" "Because I wanted to hear you scold me." Shen Qingwan grabs a pillow and throws it at him. Yu Chengfeng catches the pillow and scoops her up, pillow and all. Shen Qingwan, "Scold me one more time." Shen Qingwan looked at him and smiled. In her raspy voice she said, "Yu Chengfeng, you idiot." Yu Chengfeng held her tighter. "I heard you. The most beautiful sound in the world, the END.